Spider-Man on the PS4 is one of the most enjoyable games I've ever played. Very little can compare to the feeling of swinging around New York City. The game does a great job of making you feel like you're actually Spider-Man. Usually, when I beat a single player game, I don't feel the need to go back through it for a couple of years. But after about 6 to 7 months, I was really feeling the urge to go back through the game. Ultra hard mode in a game is also something I very rarely care about, but I thought this would be the perfect way to replay the game and scratch that itch. I already had the Platinum Trophy and I beat all the DLC, so in my mind, there was nothing left to accomplish except for the hardest difficulty. So this video isn't going to be a review of the game, but my thoughts on the mode itself and if it adds or subtracts from the game. I will be talking about different enemies, bosses, and characters. I know the game is a few years old now, but there will be slight spoilers for anyone who hasn't played the game yet. It should be noted that I replayed the game on a brand new save file, not New Game Plus. I also 100%ed all the different boroughs in the game, however, I didn't end up getting perfect on everything. Some of the challenges I beat for the tokens to upgrade my equipment, and then just move on. Getting perfect on a Taskmaster drone didn't really feel like it was all that important to the experience of Ultra Hard mode, and I'll explain why shortly. The story of the game didn't change, which was no surprise. There was no extra missions or anything I could find. I was thinking there might be something extra when playing on the hardest difficulty, which naturally is called Ultimate in the game, but there was no extra boss, no secret missions that I noticed, and if there is, let me know down in the comments. To be fair, after 100%ing the game for a second time, I wasn't really feeling the need to add an extra 2 hours or so, but it would have been a cool feature. The main and side missions didn't really increase in difficulty. In fact, there were times I even had to double check I was on the right difficulty. I'm not sure there was any extra enemies than before. I was hoping for something along the lines of, if there was 4 enemies guarding a room in normal mode, then ultimate mode could have 6 enemies. But there seemed to be no change. There also seemed to be no change in boss strength either. If a boss took 3 object hits followed by a flurry of punches in normal mode, then it's the same in ultimate. At least, if it wasn't, it felt like it. From a story perspective, if you were watching a clip from normal mode and ultimate, I don't think you could tell the difference. The actual hardest part of the game was the very beginning. I died against the very first set of enemies I encountered. When you start up, you have no idea how strong they're going to be, and 2 hits later, I was down. I didn't think I was going to have such a glass jaw. The game didn't allow for any rust from not playing the game in months. Starting the game with no web modifications or skills unlocked meant the game was all about one thing: dodging. Being surrounded by enemies and having no extra abilities forces you to learn how to dodge, and potentially give up a combo to keep from taking a hit. It taught me to dodge, heal, distract an enemy, dodge, and heal again. I ended up using my focus bar primarily for health instead of finishers, which is entirely different from how I played the game in normal mode. My first playthrough, I could rely on 90% offense, but not anymore. As I progressed and started unlocking skills and mods, I was able to start relying more on straight offense, but never to the same extent. While the amount of enemies never increased to make it more difficult, the strength and intelligence of the regular enemies definitely increased. I died so many more times from random city crimes or Sable crimes than I ever did from actual story missions. These crimes weren't more complicated to stop, but the enemy accuracy and frequency of their attacks were greatly increased compared to before. While web throwing an object, you're basically always going to be shot from someone. It was essentially a guarantee. As the game progresses and you unlock demon and Sable crimes, they become the most challenging fights in the game. The enemies don't need to follow certain paths like they do in the story missions. They can be on a roof with very little access, and the Sable jetpack enemies can be infuriating to bring down to the ground. The puzzle sections, from Spider-Man's stealth or drone missions, or the MJ or Miles sections, were essentially unchanged. There's no extra guards to sneak around or any sort of shorter time limit or anything. In fact, because of the lack of fighting, these sections easily became the sections that I had the least amount of trouble with. Some of the fights I needed to perfect dodge 4 attacks in a row just to have the opportunity to heal, but these puzzles had no worries whatsoever. While I understand me saying things like, the bosses weren't extra strong, or the stealth sections weren't extra difficult, can sound like I didn't enjoy the game, but that's not the case. The feel of the game itself is still fantastic. Completing 50 hit combos and such was something I wasn't expecting to be able to do in ultimate mode, but you almost get sucked into feeling like Spider-Man. I say almost because as good as it feels to take out that many opponents at once, this mode actually makes Spider-Man feel weak. Not in terms of abilities to take out multiple enemies or strong bosses, but the guy can't take a punch. I feel like a strong breeze can knock me out in this mode. I died so many times from 2 punches or a random enemy with a pistol. You go from beating a boss in a fight to dying against a random enemy from a regular crime. Yes, technically the game got more difficult. However, I think they went about it the wrong way. It was only tougher in terms of enemy strength or because Spider-Man has low health, however you want to look at it. I would have preferred making the enemies have more defense, making regular enemies take more damage or need 2 focus bars per finisher, and 3 for the large enemies. Other options could have been to limit Spider-Man's abilities, not by taking his skills away completely, but by reducing the web modifications to a max of 3 or something. I think those would have been better options for implementing a difficulty spike. It would force the player to be more strategic with weapon selection. Giving the enemies more defense means clearing a room will take longer, giving them more opportunity to attack. Too many times I was able to walk into a room and use a web bomb followed by a concussion blast, which would eliminate 3 to 4 enemies in one shot. I think this method of difficulty spike would allow it to feel like every enemy is a threat, without making Spider-Man feel like he's made of glass. Going back to the puzzle sections, something like a timer for the Miles or MJ sections could increase the difficulty, as well as taking away a couple of hiding places. Removing a crate from the maze or limiting MJ's noisemakers could also make those sections feel like more of a challenge. Yes, I know the majority of the player base hated those sections, so making them harder would annoy a lot of people. But if it's the hardest difficulty, then it should be altered in some way from the base game. I understand what I'm suggesting would have created more work for the developers and programmers, and no one in any industry wants extra work if it can be avoided. Changing the designs for the research or stealth puzzles to making it so finishers take more focus can be a lot of work, with potential for more bugs in development. I understand all that, as well as a bigger file size for the extra code, which as a gamer, I don't want. But playing a mode which actually made it feel like Spider-Man was weak took away a lot of the enjoyment. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a game that I love. Considering the amount of hours I put into the game, and I still had the desire to play more, says something about the base game. But the added challenge felt like it was don't die instead of defeat these super tough enemies. And there is a difference. Just like an athlete saying there's a difference between wanting to win and hating to lose. Sadly, the mode didn't leave me wanting more. And because of the trophy system, I'm at 99% and I still need to play it on New Game Plus. And right now, I have no desire for it. While I am glad I played the game a second time, and I'm glad I did it on the hardest difficulty, I didn't get the same thrill from the game as I did the first time through. At the end of the day, I think the game went with the wrong method of implementing difficulty, and I think it affected the end result. But if you enjoyed the game, don't be shy to play it on the hardest setting. It is still a great game, and a good reason to go back through it. Just be warned about Spider-Man potentially losing the feel of a superhero. Being knocked out that easily never makes for a compelling hero. And if you never played the game at all, don't hesitate to play it on normal. The game itself is still amazing. It's just, this mode left me feeling underwhelmed, and that's a massive shame. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please be sure to click the thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. Be sure to let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are on the hardest difficulty, and if you plan on playing it again. Thanks for watching. Honestly, I really wish they just turned the enemies up to 11 instead of turning Spider-Man down to 7.